Good evening. Welcome to another Friday session of Cat Space. As you know, I have my mentor and my dearest and closest friend, Horsy. Welcome, Horsy. Good evening. How are you?
Hello, Kat. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. You good?
I'm awesome. Tonight's conversation is going to be a little educational, a little thought-provoking. I want to open the eyes of not just myself, but everyone out there who understands, who can comment about this. So before we start, don't forget to subscribe, which is on the bottom right-hand corner of the YouTube page. Click on the bell, subscribe to get everything about our topics and what we talk about. Tell your friends, make sure you like, comment, and share it all around. Okay, so this topic is, we just recently had Australia Day, so this topic is all about Australia. Now, we are currently a commonwealth country, which means the Queen is the head of our state.
Well, technically, yes.
Figurehead, more so. So since we are a commonwealth country, basing it with New Zealand, what happens if, say, if we were to become a republic? What happens when we become a republic? What are the consequences and the highs and lows of Australia having, removed power from the current government and remove the prime ministership and Queen as head of state and turn like America, which is have a president and vice president, and how would the new government run the country and what are the consequences?
Well, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, weren't we? We touched on it anyway, Kat, in that we had a referendum probably nearly 20 years ago. Should Australia become a republic? And the answer was no. I forget what the percentages were, but the answer, we voted no. But the Queen is becoming increasingly irrelevant in our society, anyway, and even in the UK. She's just a figurehead and she doesn't really do much. And a republic is defined as a country where the power is in the hands of the people and their elected representatives by means of a president rather than a monarchy. So I would say that Australia really is a republic in practice, even if not in the letter of the law. But because the prime minister or president, I mean, he's still the the prime minister is still governs the country or is the head of the government.
Yeah.
So that definition is pretty close to what Australia is now, don't you think?
But there might be severe consequences if we decide that we will become a republic. For example, I don't know if you realize this, but the Commonwealth, as in the English government, does fund a lot of Commonwealth-driven programs. So it does fund things like the CRS, which stands for Commonwealth Rehabilitation Service, which ran job find programs. They do fund hospitals. There's a lot of things that the Commonwealth actually do fund purely because we have allegiances with England. So
so the money comes from Mother England?
Yes.
Or is the money raised in Australia virtually independently?
So if we look at it, our money currently has the Queen on all the dollar coins and some of the notes. And our currency was a different color prior, and it changed again into sort of, I don't mean to offend anyone, but it changed into sort of a monopolized color, where it was kind of like a monopoly set. And
it does look like that.
What the banknotes?
Our currency.
Like out of every country in the world, don't you think that our currency currently looks like a real monopoly set? I reckon they were probably inspired by Monopoly.
Well, when the pounds, shillings, and pence changed to dollars, the banknotes in those days were lovely different colours. They were bright and colourful. When they changed them and started to change them in the 80s, the first ones weren't too bad, but now I think they're very bland colours. Like everything else, when you look around our society, it's just bland and boring.
I think
they're all the same. So you're right; it doesn't look as good as it used to.
No, but
having said that,
it's very monopolized.
As in what looks like monopoly money.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the old pound notes actually look pretty boring. They were kind of grey. So I mean, I guess that's neither here nor there. But I mean, as for what our currency looks like, I don't know whether that's really the point. But you were saying, Phil, that the funding comes from the UK. Raised by the Commonwealth.
Some of the funding, not all, a lot of it's domestic, but some of the funding for things like hospitals do actually come from the Commonwealth. And some of our military strength actually does come from the Commonwealth. So if we would, I mean, I'm sure that we could make a deal where we've still got an alliance with England, but that might just all stop because we become a republic, and England owes no debt to us whatsoever. Whereas before, there's an if you annoy England, you're effectively going to annoy Australia, and you know there's going to be a domino effect. But if you kind of cut England off, then the rest of the world will go, well, we don't have a beef with England, but we do have a beef with Australia. So
But what I'm trying to get at is what are the consequences of maybe removing the Queen as a figurehead, head of state, and having a government that is more towards similar or similarized towards America, which we have a president and a vice president, or just a president, and our money once again.
Well, see, the voting system in America is different.
Of course,
the voting system in America is different, and how they arrive at whoever is the president. I mean, our voting system here might change, but it would still be largely based on the Westminster system, I suppose, our system of government and how we vote. I don't know whether it would make a lot of difference. And as far as the funding is concerned, that is the case. I certainly think that if they didn't mismanage the money like they do, the Australian government, I think they're rather hopeless at managing our resources. I think we'd be quite self-sufficient as a republic. I don't think we'd need funding from the UK myself. Yeah, I think it would be fine, and I don't think practically it will be much different to what it is now.
Do you think the states would change, as in having premiers and all of that? Do you think that might actually change?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, see, the American states have governors, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And their role or their position is much the same as our state premiers. Is that right? Really? I mean, they're the head of state government, aren't they? The governor is the head of state government.
Well, they would have, yes, it'd be similar because we have mayors, and they have mayors. I think that's just a difference in, pronunciation.
I mean, the state premiers versus the state governors.
Yes. So basically, since you're saying we're kind of now starting to run, closer to a republic, but at the same time, the country is once again divided over, do we want the Queen? Yes, we do. Do we not want the Queen? No, we don't. Why? Because she serves no purpose for us except when the royal family comes here, and we foot the bill and we pay for it ourselves through taxpayers' money. But the thing is, if we remove the Queen, what if we were to go to war? As a republic, are we going to be known as the Republic of Australia, as our sports teams, our jobs, not just currency, but the life we may end up living? Will Australia be no longer known as?
Well, it would be
Australia.
The Commonwealth of Australia.
Well, the thing is, would we be?
Yeah, I haven't heard.
To enter the Commonwealth Games because we wouldn't be a Commonwealth nation anymore.
No, I don't think we would, because if we weren't a Commonwealth nation,
we wouldn't. We
can't join the games.
And see, the Commonwealth Games, I mean, it still exists, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When was the last one? It's every 4 years, isn't it? Like the Olympics. When was the last one?
2018, I think.
It was. It was on the Gold Coast, wasn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
It was.
I don't know about that. The funny thing about the Commonwealth Games is it really representative of world sport? Because how many countries are still in the Commonwealth, and how many countries can't participate? Whereas they can participate in the Olympic Games because they're, that's a world games. So do we really need the Commonwealth Games? I don't think so.
I think we can still enter.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not into sport, so that's why. I don't care.
I think we can enter.
But the Queen is.
I think we can enter the Olympics as a republic.
Everyone's allowed to enter the Olympics,
but the Commonwealth.
But
it's a world game.
whether you're actually allowed to enter the Commonwealth Games is another thing. I mean, I had a friend of mine.
No, you're not.
I had a friend of mine that was in the Asian Games, and Australia, she told me that Australia wasn't allowed to come to the Asian Games because they were actually barred, purely because it's quite, apparently we were too good for all the other Asian sides, so we were barred to make it fair.
But the thing is,
Well, there you go. So you're not getting, those games are not representative of what really should be happening anyway.
okay, so
Yeah, and that's what I said.
putting the games aside,
Are the Commonwealth Games, are the games representative of the abilities that are in the sportsmanship? Probably not.
No.
I mean, years ago, 100 years ago or 50 years ago, the Commonwealth had a lot of countries in it, and it was, most of the world. So maybe that's why the Commonwealth Games, I don't know when they started, but that's why they were created. But these days, they're as irrelevant as the Queen, as far as I'm concerned. The Queen doesn't do much. She doesn't really have an effect on the government of Australia.
but
I don't believe so anyway.
Well,
when the public elects their Prime Minister of Australia, the Queen then makes that phone call and says, as your Queen, I ask you to join to make a name under my government, blah, blah, blah. Then
That's right, but the result's still not in doubt. I mean, there's no question that the Queen is going to ring up and say, sorry, I don't think you're a good Prime Minister, even though the people have voted you in, I'm not letting you in. She ain't going to do that.
Although
so there's no point to that phone call. It's irrelevant.
No, but she would, the new Prime Minister would have to call the Queen, and she would have to make him swear an oath to her and allegiance to the Commonwealth, and to make a government under her name, and to follow the law of England.
But what I'm saying is, I mean, the Queen will do that because that's her role to do that, and there's no question that the Queen will not do that. Whether or not she does it doesn't matter. The people have voted, and the Prime Minister is chosen based on those votes, and that result is not going to change. On election night, one will concede and the other one will claim victory. They don't wait for the Queen's phone call in order to claim that victory. They claim that victory on election night when that phone call takes place. In fact, we're not even informed of when that phone call is. It does happen, but these days it's probably an email or whatever it is. But it doesn't matter whether that happens or not. The result is the result. You get what I'm saying? Doesn't matter.
Well, there is one thing. There wouldn't be a Governor General, because a Governor General is basically the representation of the Queen.
And so what does the Governor General do? Practically?
Well, he basically swears in Prime Minister
and the army people.
And he also
military.
Well, basically knocks back a lot of policies he doesn't like. Or he actually can fire, but he has a role which is, if there's ever a point in time, like say the Gough Whitlam era, he can actually fire the
that's right.
So that's one of
the Prime Minister can approach the Governor General and call the Prime Minister approaches the Governor General to call an election. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
That happens. So there's all those things that happen. But apart from that, I mean, that's a small matter, I think, of how an election will be called if there was no Governor General to approach. Just an election would be called. It would be announced that there'll be an election will be on this date, subject to the rules. I mean, in America, it's a 4-year term. And after 4 years, you can run for another 4 years. And then if you've served 8 years as a president, you can't run again. That's right, isn't it? So there may be a change to those rules. But what else does the Governor General do? There's a Governor General, they open things and they go around to parties and this and that. Now, they don't do much.
I think he also looks after the military, and he writes, he gives them lists of what who can and can't be eligible to enter the military and give a point, and what I don't know much about Sir Peter Cosgrove. Okay, I don't know much about him.
He's the military general. He's not.
Well, who's the Governor General?
Who is the Governor General?
I don't know.
I don't.
Let me look.
I thought it was a lady.
Well,
an old lady, or is that the Governor of New South Wales? I'm not sure. Marie, someone? I'm not sure.
Let me look that up. currently about to look that up.
This is so embarrassing. I've been
Yes,
concentrating on Trump and Biden that I've basically had no interest in Australian politics up until this point.
Yeah, it's very informative. And we've done our research well again, haven't we? Yes, of course.
Here is
I know it was a female. I know that,
I thought so.
David Hurley.
which happens to be David.
The Governor General of Australia is David Hurley.
That's right. That's right. That's right. He's been there for 2 or 3 years, I think. But yeah,
And no one's
Um,
noticed until now.
He was sworn in as the
I didn't
Commonwealth
even know who
of
it was.
Australia's 27th Governor General on the 1st of July 2019.
Hmm.
The Governor General has a unique role to play in the Australian landscape. Okay.
And yet we forgot about him. Just like, seriously, really the only two politicians I really know about right now is Gladys Berejiklian name, for which I keep
Gladys,
saying you wrong.
yeah, Gladys Alphabet, yes.
And ScoMo, and that's it right now. That's because that's the only two I hear in politics right now.
What about that lady in Queensland who's been so ridiculous, and the fellow in Victoria, the Daniel, what's his name? Yes, we know about them now, but we didn't know who they were before because they weren't really very popular before, and they're not popular now, but we know about it.
My education about my own country is very limited. I know we have Australia Day. I know if we say going on this conversation is that if and when we do leave the Commonwealth, become a republic, we no longer can be known as Anzac Day or Remembrance Day because...
Well, Anzac Day is different because that's a commemoration of war service, and that will probably continue. That's not connected to whether we're a republic or not.
What will probably change is the fact that who it's represented by. So
yeah,
that's the only thing that'll about change would be whether it's a prime minister that represents it or a president. But apart from that, that day will never change.
No, that's right. There's nothing to do with.
If we were to leave the Queen and England, would we? Okay, look. I'm not smart at this. I'm going to give it a shot of asking. Would we have our own Independence Day if we were to break free from the British and just become...
Well, I think it's an opportunity, actually. I think it's an opportunity to have another public holiday because Australia Day could stay there because that's a commemoration, as we discussed last week, of the landing of the first fleet, right, and the establishment of European settlement in Australia. Whether that's a good or bad thing, but we could have an extra day for Republic Day on the day on which the country was declared a republic. But we need to put it sort of in the second half of the year, so it's spaced out the public holidays nicely. So we have one every month or so. That's a great idea, So I think we should.
Why don't we just have a Republic
I think we should.
See, I think
a whole week off.
Yeah, a whole week off to denote that
that'd be great.
Republic, to separate ourselves from the English. Finally, we would be like India. We would have a republic. We would have a republic.
But
you go to some parts of Sydney and we already are, but that's another story.
But
anyway, I think we should have an extra day.
I think we should too. I mean, I want to learn as much as I can about my own country, but the thing is, what scares me the most is what are the highs and what are the lows, and what are the good points and what are the bad points? What are the consequences? Here is my question. What are the consequences of both good and of bad? What are we planning to head into? And
becoming a republic.
Yeah.
The thing is, will our sovereignty actually change once we become a republic? So that's another question. Our entire identity might change once we become a republic as well.
I don't know.
Possibly.
I don't think a lot of people pay any attention to sovereignty. There will be a few. There'll be a few who still swear allegiance to the Queen and still have a photo of the Queen up on the wall. In every church hall and every scout hall, and there was always a photo of the Queen up on the wall. Taken in the 1950s when she was a young Queen Elizabeth and she was looking beautiful with the crown on. Yeah. And that was there for years. Well, I haven't seen one of those for a long time in any public space.
Well, you see, that might that's another thing that actually might change because the thing is about scouts Scouts is basically tied into a royal family, and
Is
you
it?
you would yes you most. I was actually told this because you can't, like in Canada they have like a royal family. I believe, I could be wrong.
The Queen is the head
Yeah.
of state.
But-
She's
Yeah,
the
Canada's part of the Commonwealth.
Commonwealth.
But they would have legitimate scouts because they would swear allegiance to the Queen.
But yeah,
And-
Canada has a president. Does Canada have a president or a prime minister? I thought it
Prime
was a
Minister
president.
Justin
The
Trudeau.
prime minister, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Justin
Yeah.
Trudeau.
Apparently, he's a sweetheart amongst all
I
political
see.
groupies.
Thing is, I personally would be happy to switch and have
Mm,
him
mm.
come control
I
our
agree.
country and send Scott Morrison to some other country like America.
Well,
As long as we don't have to have a photo of the president in every public space. I think that's a dangerous precedent to set.
but
I wouldn't want that.
the thing is, what would you replace scouts with? So would they still be called scouts, or who would they be signing allegiance to? Would they just be signing allegiance to Australia?
and our flag.
I think,
And our
yeah, I
flag.
think the country, that would be better to change it to that. I mean, there was a time when scouts and guides said prayers and swore allegiance to God, but that's gone, I think.
I used to be a brownie and
The
a
only
Belgian.
reference to God in public, was it the case that you swore allegiance to God? Or no?
Yes, with it did talk about it,
Yeah.
and the Queen. We did both actually,
Mm, mm.
and
So it would
Australia.
just be swearing allegiance to your country.
and to
I
the
think.
flag.
Yes, and that'd be good too, and that would actually engender probably a new sense of patriotism, which I think I mentioned last week, has sort of been lost a bit. 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, a lot of people were very patriotic, but now not so much. And I think that would be a good thing to bring that back. I mean, I also think swearing allegiance to God and talking about God is a good thing, but that's because I happen to be a man of faith, but a lot of people aren't.
Well,
And
that's
so
the,
that's
that's the other thing. We would have to change our flag and have to get rid of the Union
the
Jack.
Union
Yeah.
Jack. Yeah, we would.
And
Just have the Southern Cross.
yeah,
Exactly. That's all we'd have, or we'd
a
I don't
blue
know.
flag with white stars.
or a blue flag with a meat pie.
Because the Americans have the 50 stars, don't they?
50,
And we would
yeah,
have to
it
have,
used to be 49, now it's 50. 50 stars and 7 red and white stripes.
because they won't
Red
acknowledge
stripe.
Area 51, so they only got 50.
because, and we would also have to have, to remove the Union Jack, and what would we put in its place?
Oh,
I think we would just have, I mean,
well,
the Aboriginal flag.
well, I mean, it could be that, or replace it with the Eureka flag. That could be an option for us.
Actually, yeah, that might be, or one of the military flags. But the military flags, that's the interesting thing too. The military flags, a lot of them also include the Union Jack.
Hmm.
They're different colours.
That's right.
They're sort of red and black and that, they're different colours. But they include the Union Jack. So that all that would have to change. But who would be on our coins? What will we have on our coins?
Well, it would probably be our president, whoever that would be,
Yeah, whoever that will turn out to be.
or a bunch of
Hmm.
Australian marsupials or something like that.
Yeah,
Or I don't know, maybe it could be
echidna.
or
We've already got an echidna going.
well, I mean, like
Well, they're already on
it
there.
would be something,
If it's
political.
not animal,
What would be on what's on the American coins? Is it the picture of the White
they
House?
have a numerous amount of presidents. So they have Lincoln.
that's the notes. They
No.
have Benjamin Franklin. They have George Washington, Abe Lincoln. I think.
Um,
But I know.
But on the coins, like on the one side of the
on-
coin.
on-
it's not-
on their coins, they actually do have heads of presidents.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. So
But the thing is, they're different to us because they still use pennies and nickels.
Yeah.
We don't have pennies or nickels. They still use pennies and nickels.
No, but on all the coins, I mean, the Queen is on all our coins.
yeah, so
On
that would
one
have
side.
to change. That would have to change.
Either that's what I'm saying.
So
Either
what would
animals.
it be? Who would it
Yeah.
be? The president? If
Yeah,
it's-
probably.
It would probably be the president.
Yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be.
Here's a
But the funny
question.
thing is, the Queen's been there for years. The Queen's been there for many years, and so the Queen's always been on the coin. So when new coins are minted, it's just always the Queen, and they update the photo of the Queen, or the picture of the Queen on the coins every few years. So if you look at a coin that was made in the 1960s, it's a young Queen, and if you look at a coin that's made now, it's an older Queen.
But he's
So I mean, that's happened 3 or 4 times throughout the life of our decimal currency. So when a new president is elected, you would have to you'd have some coins that were from that era that had one president, then you'd have the next president. I suppose that'd be okay. It wouldn't matter.
But here's the kicker. Okay, here's the kicker. God forbid, should the Queen pass, the new figurehead or head of state will be Prince Charles. He will be on everything. If God forbid Prince Charles passes away, Prince William will be on it.
That's correct. But the question I wanted to ask is that there's something within Australian law that states whoever basically creates our currency gets about $1 per print. I think it's $1 per print. It might have, yeah. Whoever created the $2 coin gets $1 per print. So the question is, does the Queen get money for every dollar or every currency that gets printed? That would be real quick. And so if that's the case, if we basically decided to put our presidents on each coin or each bit of currency, whether that's a note or something else,
Or a dollar or cents.
would that go directly to our president?
Probably.
No,
Most probably.
I think, and maybe let's just finish on this point. What do you reckon? I think that the money should go to the poor. Now, that'd be a world first.
To where?
That'd be a great way of establishing our republic. What do you think?
Oh,
Yes,
I think that's a brilliant idea.
That is a brilliant idea. I'd like to see that happen in my lifetime.
Yes, please. I'm game for that. Sign me
So
up.
if you're watching this, please suggest that idea to all the politicians, and let's see what happens.
Yes. There you go. From
Good night.
Horse's mouth. If you're listening, suggest that to all the politicians. Let us know if you want to. If you let us know about in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us know what you think. Good night, Horsy. Thank you for joining us once again, and we will see you next Friday night. Night.
Hooroo.
Bye.